Hi, a very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Ankita from NASSCOM. Today's episode will be the 20th one from our Product Management Series 2. For this interesting session, I have with me Rakesh Agarwal, Head of Products at Tally Solutions. And he also supports the Product Council in many of its initiatives like the NASSCOM Skill Dev pillar, of which this capability building pillar, of which these webinars are also a part of. He will share his thoughts and learnings on Thrive with Continuous Innovation. Sessions flow will be 40 to 45 minutes of the delivery, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. You can ask questions anytime during the session, and Rakesh will try to answer most of them after his presentation. And also do not forget to leave your feedback to help me better my future sessions. Welcome, Rakesh, and over to you.
Thanks, Ankita, and thanks for the introduction. And I would definitely want to thank you for driving the learning initiative of NASSCOM. You're doing a very truly awesome job. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session today. Today, we are going to talk about innovation, and I really like this quote from Satya, and I would like to really state it up front. Our industry does not respect tradition. What it respects is innovation. I have seen companies flourish in my career and also perish in my career, the same companies. And it really tells that innovation is absolutely vital for product companies. And this is so true. And this quote is so true for us. But when we think along and when we think around and look things around, we really have this question in our head, like why so few companies achieve this? Right? What it takes to achieve this? And this is definitely the thought which went behind making this deck, making this session, and some of the answer to this lies in this title, which is Thrive with Continuous Innovation. Honestly, during my professional experience journey, there are a lot of people who have contributed towards my thinking on continuous innovation. So first, I would like to thank them all and thank for helping me build my thinking around it. And my professional experience, which you see it on the left side and which also Ankita mentioned, also helped me to shape up this thought process on continuous innovation. I think I would like to pick up two things out of my experience, which allows me to think views on innovation, right? So I'm going to pick up two parts of my experience, and the first one, which I feel like the opportunity that I had, and I was lucky to work with organization with very large size, like Bosch, like SAP. I had organization that I worked with was like Tally, which is a mid-size, and my own startup. So the perspective that I could build over my career of 20 plus years is I know how innovation could thrive in a smaller setup, in a little mid-size setup, and in a large setup. So it's really helped me to stitch this dots. The second thing that has helped me is my experience with SAP and Bosch was with the larger enterprises, large companies. But when it comes to Tally, it was to do with the small companies. And in my entrepreneurship, I had chance even to work on the B2C side of the businesses. So the consumer side of it. So all in all, I think put together a perspective of a market, a perspective of different size of the company, helps me to talk about this subject, and with a lot of people contributing in this thought has helped me to put this thing together. The flow today that we are going to take up is when we talk about innovation, it will be really good to actually step back a bit, look into the last 20 years and see how innovation has come through alive. Then we would it will be good to get into the core part of our presentation, which are the fundamentals of innovation, is where we will spend thick time, and then we will sum it up and followed by a long Q&A. So that's the plan for today. If I look back 20 years and look at the time when I was working at that time with SAP, and I was working with large enterprises, I think the biggest difference that I see from now to last 20 years is the technology has moved outside of the enterprise. That itself is a big change in my. Technology has moved from on-premise to cloud. It has moved into the hands of the people who are using on the move. Uh, that's a huge difference that I see in an enterprise world. I also see, like in the last 20 years, small and medium businesses, very few of them, even micro businesses, very few of them used to use technology earlier for the purpose of business, are now using it for purpose of their business. So these are real big changes that has happened. But I think that is not the biggest difference. I believe the biggest difference is it is rare to find someone who is not using technology right now. It's really rare. I think that's the biggest difference the last 20 years have brought in. And if we try to support this with some data, what you would see is 66% of the world population above 13 years will be owning a smartphone, will be having a smartphone. So just imagine it's so rare to find someone now who's not using a technology. I think that's a leap. If I remember earlier, there were only few who could afford to access the technology 20 years back, who had either community share or at work, they could access technology. Now almost everyone can access. A very short story to share here, a story in my family. We are a 6-member family. My parents are there. I have 2 kids and my wife. And one of them is less than 13 years. So out of the 5 people who are there in this chart, 4 are using smartphone and 1 is not, which is my mother. And she's around 70. And 2 weeks back, actually, I bought a smartphone for her. And the reason I could do that is she asked me, she wants to use one app, just one app, which is YouTube. And she wants to listen to bhajan on YouTube. I was so happy actually. So it becomes 100% at our home. 1 week later, she comes back to me that she wants to do satsang with her friends, right? So she wants me to create a login into a collaboration tool, and they did it together. Such a pace of adoption within 1 week time from a single app to a collaborative app at the age of 70. To me, it's like the speed of innovations out here. And I'm sure you will also have a similar story around with you. And a lot of people will have these stories where people have started to use technologies in different ways and means. I think that is truly amazing. And this is the true innovation as a society as a large, which is really good to see that. And what is really important here is to understand why such a frantic pace of adoption that took place. What was the reason behind uh, such an adoption, massive adoption? And broadly, there are 5 reasons to really talk about, right? There could be more, but these are the 5 which I think really has helped a lot. One, the technology has become a lot more powerful. Now, be it on the mobile, be it on the server side, which is on the cloud, I think the way there's a lot that you can do with the apps right now. There's a lot more possible, and the data, the communication is becoming so fast. I mean, that itself is a huge, powerful statement there, and it will further become. And not only that, it all became affordable after that. So you have a way that it can be adopted in a long, an affordable price, which everybody could do that. And what was interesting was the entry barrier got reduced because the interaction was made intuitive. And these interactions we learn at the age of roughly around 1 year, gesture, voice. This is something that we We learn very early in our age, and I can get onto any platform with the gesture, with the voice. I think it's truly amazing, and that really led to a lot of people, start using it. They found it very simple. The third point, which I felt was overall, if I look at the last 20 years, the products are becoming really well-rounded right now from different perspective, not just from the perspective of technology, but from a perspective of user, the life cycle, the journey of the user, right? And it's a lot to do with uh, the the kind of people which have started to contribute. I remember my days when, as an engineer, I used to go collect requirements, come back, code, ship the product, and everything. But now I see a lot many new roles out there in the organization. You have UX designers, you have product managers, you have data scientists. So these specialized streams have really allowed us to build a products that are a lot more holistic. It's really well-rounded right now. I think one of the reasons why the pace of innovation is very fast is there is a faster cycle of innovation. We have got a lot more ability to prototype, to experiment, to actually go and talk to people and say, hey, what will work, what will not work. Getting those findings very early is so useful that actually you produce less junk, you produce something which is very innovative. This is really, really helpful. So put all four of them together, right? You have technology which is a lot more powerful and cheaper. You have something that people can start to use easily. The products are much well-rounded. You can do it in a shorter time frame. It actually gives a possibility for a lot of us to actually start thinking and doing our own startups, actually to build more innovations in the society, right? And that's where I say the democratization of innovation has happened. And of course, access to capital with a lot of venture capital around us and angel funding around us has really helped for this to happen. So these are the five big reasons of shift why it's very rare to find someone not using technology right now. And if I look at the next decade ahead, I think these five reasons will still prevail, right? And they will become stronger and better. What we will also see is two new additions that will happen. And of course, one we are going through right now, we have to reinvent ourselves in the post-COVID world. And there is definitely a lot more digitization, a lot more usage of technology. So how this will shape up, I think each one of us are anticipating and making plans of it. And one big thing that's going to happen in the next decade is millennials will be in action, right? And they would be decision makers as a consumers. They would be creators of products. And I'm sure this will be different. And the reason why it will be different is um, look at us. For us, technology came into our life. It was a change for us. It wasn't the way of the life. For the millennials, technology is the way of the life. It is how they value things around. And they do have a very strong value system, and which I feel very good about it. So I believe that millennials will be in action, and definitely they would do something which is a lot more innovative, a lot more, it comes natural to them as a technology guy. So I'm looking forward for the upcoming decade, what's there out there. So this is whole as a society. So as a society, in last 2 decades, I think we had great success. Um, we will have great success in the next decade also. I think it'll be good to now build a perspective of companies, right? So now we were talking about society. Now let's go a little deeper. Let's cascade it down a little bit. How does it look right now? This is the list of Fortune 500 companies of 2019. This is a list of only tech companies out there, right? And these Fortune 500 companies picked it up from the Wikipedia. They are sorted based on revenue. Some of them are not included, like Amazon. which is considered in retail. But one interesting thing that you would look at here, and the way to read this table would be slightly different, is what I would say. Look at those companies which used to exist before 2000, right? And in the last 2 decades, they have thrived, and they have thrived through innovation. And you can see the top two, Apple, Samsung, they have really thrived through innovation, and they got to the top, right? And if you look at other set of companies which did not exist before 2000, right? They also made it to this list, or maybe just started. Alphabet just started before 2000 actually. So that is Google actually. If some of you don't know Alphabet, so Google, Facebook, you see it in the list. They didn't exist, or they hardly had any revenue. So they came up the chart, right? This is really good. It differentiates, and some of them could sustain. They couldn't grow, but they sustained. And each of them, I am sure, are planning what their next decade will look like. But there are some who are not in the list, but who was actually doing really, really well. I remember companies like BlackBerry, Nokia, um, not there. The other part of this is the from where they belong. I think what is good to see is there's a lot of Asian companies apart from US out there, and this is definitely heartening to know. But what really makes me feel, let's say, uncomfortable is where do we stand as Indian technology companies? Where are we? I mean, we had traveled a long distance now. We have been into technology for last 4 decades, and this is something which I think we are very proud of. But somehow we are not making to that list at the top. And this is the list of 2019. I'm sure it might change in 2020. But this is something which we really need to think about why this is like that. What are the reasons behind it? And innovation is probably one of the reasons, not all, but is something which I feel is needs to, that belief is there, but it needs to have a much better maturity. And hence this subject and some of the beliefs that I feel it needs to evolve, and it could differ from company to company. I think we have audience here from startup to mid-size to large enterprises, and each of you will have different meaning, different context, and each one of you will have different maturity on each of these subjects. But 3 points here, in my opinion, which I believe it's more of a belief, not an action in my head, right? So the belief is like I need to be more innovative, but sometimes we call being innovative as innovation. Let me take some examples here. Filing patents, we think it is innovation. Hackathon, we think it is innovation. Idea management, we think it is innovation. Actually, it is not. It is being innovative, and which is important. I'm not saying, but innovation is something that has a market impact, that has something which impacts society. Biggest innovation is the specs that I am wearing right now, right? It has a huge market impact right now. So these are the innovation is when you actually translate into market impact. So being innovative doesn't mean innovation. So we have to be very clear about the terminology that we use. And being innovative, when you couple it up with the right organization system, can create innovations. Absolutely possible. So when I mean organization system, I mean product processes, I mean people processes. How do you encourage innovation? How do you encourage that people are trying out new things? How do you reward people when they have tried things? How do you build a system which is from idea to launch and scale? And this the systems could vary in a small company when I'm a startup versus in a mid-sized company versus a large company. And the system needs to mature when you are moving up the ladder. So we kind of don't mature the system, and we keep it where we had our initial success, is where we start to stagnate. So being innovative coupled with the right organization system can give you innovation. And you don't want this to be a one-time phenomena. You want this to be in long term. And if you really want this to be in a long term, make sure that you're fostering a culture, and that means your day-to-day behavior actually reflects a lot of things that are required. So once you do all of this together, I think you have, as a belief system, is where you will have to actionize that. You have to start thinking what is possible, what's not possible. So while I have spoken in general, what's very important right now that you as an individual, what you can act upon. You as an individual, someone who works in a team, someone who leads the team, someone who leads the function or the organization, what can you do? And this is the core of our subject today, and this is where we will spend our time today, are the 5 fundamentals of innovation, which I think are absolutely important to thrive. And it is 5 right now, but I'm sure there could be more, and it will evolve as I learn. But it seems very comprehensive to me as I speak as of today. The first one is this, like, what it tries to answer is, what is the nature of my innovation? What should I be focusing more on to really this thing to materialize, right? How can I get a kicks? How do I start out things which is a lot more informed, right? How do I create triggers that I can be I would know deep subject very deeply, and actually we will be lot more innovative than in the past, right? Do I have the team in place? Do I have this life cycle system, product life cycle system in place, which will help me to learn, and not just me, the system itself learn, and they grow and mature as the organization grows. So these are the 5 fundamentals that we will talk about. Let's start with the first one, nature of innovation. In my opinion, there are 2 nature of innovation, and possibly there could be others, but I feel like these 2 kind of brings in almost all the use cases. One is demand-led innovation, other one is invention-led innovation. And let's build some examples to understand what it means there. Let's take a use case. I, as a father, would like my child to have life skills which are really helping her to shape up her career. Some of the things that comes to my mind is about writing skills, about presenting skills, about entrepreneurship, about how do you become a lawyer or something like that. You know, some debate kind of a thing that happens. So these are the life skills that I would like my child to go through. And if this is the problem statement, there are multiple types of solutions that we can think through, right? One could be a demand-led, which is the idea that I have in my mind right now, is possibly this need can be served with a facilitator or set of modules of life skills, where a group of kids come together on a platform, facilitated by a facilitator. There are courses, and they actually do this on a technology platform. That's one approach, and let's call this as approach A, right? The other solution approach that I could possibly think of, which could be an innovation-led innovation in my head, invention-led innovation, is I could think of an augmented reality experience where I, as a kid, can actually use voice as a frame and to learn public speaking skills. And there's someone who's guiding me through. I'm making presentations. So a system which really is working on demand. It is not dependent on facilitator. I can scale because I can scale anywhere in the world, actually, not just in India. I can scale anywhere in the world. I can do multi-language. So this is another option that I have. And to do that, I will have to create technology which doesn't exist. But once I do that, it'll definitely surprise a lot of people if I do that. So if you look, the fundamental difference between the two is a demand-led innovation. It reflects the customer needs and preferences, and it needs to identify the problem approach spot on and use technology to deliver it. And on the right side, when we look at invention, these type of products, they really surprise users, and you need to create new tech to make it happen. And what I believe that in the first one, what it really requires for company is the needs will evolve very fast. And can you anticipate? Can you deliver? Can you keep on catching it up? On this side, you should be very confident of if you're doing your innovation, right? You need to have very deep talent to do it. And of course, the risk capital that is required to make it happen. And a lot of time when we are doing invention, we are not thinking about how I will turn this invention into money. I think it's very important to think early. Maybe the money is going to come out a little late, but how late? What it should be, right? And these are, I think, some of the examples which are out there. If you look at e-commerce, delivery apps, collaboration tools, they to me kind of belong to demand-led innovation. Could be wrong here. And iPhone, AWS, Xbox, Google Maps, they have definitely surprised us, which are, I believe, are invention-led innovation. Sorry about that. So the two approaches, the two solutions that we discussed, right? One with the augmented reality experience, and other one with the facilitator and a group learning experience. If I have to make a choice as a leader, I have to first actually make a choice, right? So what leaders need to do is pick one. Will I pick the solution approach A, or will I pick the solution approach B, right? And it could differ from individual to individual. It's absolutely fine to start anywhere, right? So pick anyone and really start to grow sufficiently. Grow that, right? So suppose if I pick up facilitator and group learning experience, once I had a sufficient growth, I can parallelly think of, because I know much better, I can actually parallelly think of doing an augmented reality experience. So it's very important, if you want to have a sustained success, that you do things also in tandem. It's not that you are just doing demand-led innovation forever, or you are not doing this. I think if you need to mix it up as you go forward, and that's very critical to really create the edge over the substitutes. Because as soon as you start anywhere, I think there'll be a lot of substitutes that will come in on the way. So how do you really move up the curve and challenge and be the best, provide the unique differentiator? I think you've got to do it in the tandem. So now if you understand the difference between the demand-led and the invention-led, my question back to you is, what do you think where your work belongs? Where your product belongs? What do you need to focus upon? What will get you success, right? What all things that you need to do it in tandem, especially for the leaders, right? Are you stuck on the one side and not going into the other side? Are you so? And is it the right time? So that's also one of the things that you need to judge upon. So these are the questions, if you try to answer for yourself, I believe it will really help you to drive value out of this fundamental. But now, once you've identified, the next important thing is to get started, right? To to build something, right? That is the first thing that comes to our mind, whether I have taken solution approach A or solution approach B. And this is where this next fundamental starts to kick out. I think we all are aware of build, measure, learn loop, and a lot of us, and especially engineer like me, actually have done this big mistakes that I started with building without learning, right? And the cost of the failure is too high. You start building and then you measure whether what's working or not, and then you start to learn. If you start out more informed, you learn first. You figure out what all things will make it work, what will not make it work through and through. Do some small prototypes. We'll talk about that in the next slide, how to do that, learn first better. But the point here is learn first and then build, then measure and then learn. So start out a lot. So that is the attitude shift that we require. So we get really, when a good idea strikes our mind, it really says, hey man, this is cool, let's start building it. And it has come from the top, so we have to do it sometimes also. So those are also the situations. So I would really would recommend that think why, what are the reasons why you have to do this, what you have to do it, how you will do it, learn that first, and then build it. So and the reason why I believe this is it reduces less waste, it is a lot more efficient. Actually, you produce a lot more holistic product if you do this approach. And I would even go one step further, right? In every situation, try to do that. Suppose you have a new people who have new members of the team who have joined your project. How much are they aware of? Are they onboarded on that subject well? Do they know the customers well? Do they know the technology well? What's the history behind? So make sure that people are starting out informed. It really brings the effectiveness and the efficiency of the team by notches. So go on to the right side. And the question comes to us right now is how do I learn, right? So let's go back to the examples. So we had two examples that we spoke about. One which is facilitator based, and other one which is augmented reality experience. How could I possibly learn which is the right way, what we have to do and start with? Which takes to the next fundamental, which is the triggers for humans to be innovative, right? And here what you need to do is there are three things, and we are all aware, but I think we could somehow kind of miss the core of it, is questioning, observing, and experimenting. I think these three, if we do, we have a lot more better idea of getting what will work, what will not work. So let's take this example of facilitator-based training, right? If we have to build that, I'm going to definitely go and ask a lot of questions to the parents. What do they think about it? What modules they think that they will be, like to have for a child? What is the screen time that they would like their child to spend? Are they comfortable with the facilitator on the remote? Similarly, I would have a similar kind of questioning, but in a different way to a child. Maybe I will observe some child which is doing a offline facilitation. So there's a lot of offline facilitation courses happening around, and I would probably go and start observing how does it work. What really surprises me from there. And once I understand, maybe I will build some small prototype, paper prototype, system prototypes, or even code, and really figure out what works and what doesn't work. So doing this cycle again and again really matures an idea faster, gets your MVP out, which is a lot more successful. But yes, there are times when you need to generate ideas, right? So there are stages when these ideas will mature. So how do you generate, right? Now here, let's take some augmented reality experiences, right? Now I might want to give some creative time to explore what is possible, right? So let's assume I have taken the path of facilitation and now I wanted to also explore this idea of augmented reality experience. And I might allocate 15%, 20% of few individuals who are doing this. But in general, let's say that an organization has a frame which kind of gives people a creative time. They can really explore what is possible, what are the things that can be done. They can look at what are other use cases which are out there that people have solved. And this way you can generate ideas, and if you put that in a system and it happens, all these 5 happens daily, is where essentially what you do is you pick up an idea, you mature an idea, you see what is possible. And very clearly the leader's role here is to nurture them into organization habit. I think that's the key, the organization habit here. It has to, and it is fine if people actually question leaders also. It is fine that when they are trying to tell the strategic choice or ideas, they are also not very sure about what will work, what will not work. So it's good to discuss that. It's culturally it's a little difficult for us, but I think we are crossing over that now. So for leaders, what is very important is that they align with people, and they allow, when they are aligning with people, questioning, they can also look at new surprises that people will get, that or ideas that will come. And once they are clear that people are aligned and they have got this habit, I think empowering is very important, which actually gives the creative space to people. So do that concurrently. It could differ from individual to individual, but create a culture, because this is where the culture will get set as a leader. And once you do that, it really starts to give you long-term benefits out of this. Now, let's take this example. And here the tripod is a metaphor. And there are 3 roles here: product manager, UX designer, technical lead. But there could be a 4th role, a 5th role like data scientist, and we can put many roles here. But the whole objective of, let's say we are doing a facilitator-led program, I need to make sure a useful product is created for the customer, right? Which is elegant and usable and is used over a long period of time. That means it is of a very high quality as well. And if this is what we need, right? What's key is you have a diverse perspective of the user coming in. So what I have figured out is, at a lot of places, okay, let me take a different example. Our product managers in Tally, now it's not possible, but what we had did in the past is every week they used to go and meet customers to really get and to understand what the user needs. And these are very exploratory conversation. These are not which is like focused on the subject, but there, if you have built the strength that the product manager actually understands and can represent a user in the company, it actually accelerates your pace of decision making. It accelerates the pace, what design will work, what will not work. And similarly, as a UX designer, if I go and start observing how users are using product, it just allows me to see what interactions will work, what interactions are not working, and maybe they are looking at with some small little cool things out there. And yes, so for leaders, my message to them would be that uh, they need to ensure that a good team is in place, and ensure the collaboration happens around the tripod team. And one of the things which I would strongly recommend is, as you grow, if you really want a sustained culture, the decision gets taken. Don't take the decision, but make sure a decision gets taken by the 3 people around there. And this is going to really help the team to be doing a sustained innovation over a long time. This is slightly busy slide of establishing the learning product system. let's I've tried to mark it with color green because if you see, I think that what green here at the top means is um, so something that is defining the possible outcome. So a product system actually has four subsystems. Imagine these are four different subsystems. One, which is strategy development, which helps you to make strategic choices for both product and business. Other one actually details out, which is discovery and design, details out what and why this is required. So let's go back to our use case, right? Um, at a point of time, assume I have started with a facilitator-led solution. I need to keep on discovering and designing for that to be successful. But at a point of time, I need to make a choice, and it's doing well, that when will I start the augmented reality experience, right? And these are the choices that needs to happen in the strategy development. And it probably requires even different skills. Hence, it might change what is the skills of the development team that you require, the way you would deliver. It could differ from the way you led the facilitator program. So it needs, when you look at strategy development, you look at the capability also of the organization, what it can deliver, right? And that's the important thing of strategy development, that you just don't think about what's there now, but you also think about the future, and what's the right time for it is the key. Of course, what is there in the current, what you really also need to figure out, how will you do business in strategy development. So what are the feedback that you will get from launching and scaling? What kind of usage data that you will get? Which all markets to scale? Where are your customers? Those are the calls based on feedback. You'll have to keep on building that. So that's how strategy development is connected to all other areas. And when we come to discovery and design, it actually really brings a deep knowledge on the subject of why someone is using this. It builds the hypothesis, that we call it, hypothesis-driven development. It builds that why, and it builds why certain things will work in a certain way. And this requires the three things that we spoke about: questioning, observing, and experimenting, and designing. So if you do that well, I think you have fed into a system which is trying to achieve an outcome, which is to really deliver a best quality code and distribute seamlessly. I particularly put that word distribute because a lot of time we are really bad at distribution. So I think this is kind of some of the mistakes learned out there. So if you put this system in place, and this slide is more for the leaders or others to even be aware of what kind of systems are there now. It's very important for them to create these feedback loops, learn each one of them, and mature them. I'm not going to deep dive into it, but the core message is make sure that you understand the four building blocks. So what we covered is these 5 fundamentals of continuous innovation. We covered in the nature of innovation, your ability to identify whether it is a demand-led or innovation-led. So look back at your work where it belongs, see what is the focus, pick one to start and grow. And of course, you need to do both, right, to sustain growth. So you have to define the timing when it works out for you. Yes, move from build, measure, learn loop to learn, build, measure loop, and this really would help you to use your resources well, in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of your cost of failure and probability of success that we talk about. So starting out informed is absolutely the key thing. And to set up the culture, I believe these are the triggers to be innovative, and ensuring that this triggers become an organization habit is a very crucial part of this whole conversation today. And yes, make sure that you have a diverse team which kind of brings the holistic product. It's a very balanced team which makes decision and moves forward. And you have a learning product lifecycle system, what we spoke about. So if you pick up this, I believe these are the key beliefs that we spoke about, right? And kind of answers the question of the fundamentals that are behind innovation. So innovation is vital, and if you have to thrive with continuous innovation, you have to do a few things which are marked in green. And specific actions is where you will have to bring it into this slide. So these are specific action. So if I have to ask you, what are your key takeaways? Pick up few areas that you really want to go a little deeper, and that will really help you. Try it out for 1 month or 3 months. It will really help you to get better at this. Yes, I really like the statement from Sundar Pichai. What is our opportunity? I believe we have been a great exporter of talent to tech companies. But what we are going through is right now is our own revolution, and we definitely feel our hashtag India Productified initiative that we have taken is in this direction, where we are trying to create a culture where we will produce a great quality product where we can actually go global and not only consume India but consume across the world. So that's the opportunity we are talking about. And yes, connect to me on LinkedIn. If you have any further question, please drop me a mail. And I said, I would really like to see if you try 2 things out here and try for that in 1 to 3 months next and share me a mail, right? So I would love to hear back from you. You can expect a response from me. So please drop in a mail. You want to know more, you have some questions, you succeeded in doing something. I would love to hear stories around innovation. Yes, so here we come to the last part, which is innovation starts with the question. So let's begin with your question. And I'm sure you would have put your questions on a chat session. If you haven't, please start pouring in your question, and I would like to answer them now. Ankita, over to you. If you can.
Yeah, thank you, Rakesh, for this wonderful presentation. So let's begin our Q&A round. So Abhijit has 2 questions for you. Question number 1 is difference between innovation and disruption in terms of planning and execution.
Innovation and disruption.
Yeah, in terms of planning and execution.
Absolutely. I think in terms of, if you look at innovation, I said innovation is something which is an outcome actually first. So innovation is an outcome. So I mean here, what you mean to say is some innovations. So innovation, first of all, the word is used by different purposes for different things in the current world. So so the choice of the word is not what I'm very clear right now for me, but I'm getting a sense out of the question. The way to plan this out, if you have to ask me whether you go with invention-led innovation or demand-led innovation, is to detail out what are the key things that you have to identify first, because in both the models, it is unpredictability is out there. So what do you have to figure out? What do you don't know about this? And make a plan around how will you figure out each of the unknowns that are there around in innovation stage. So that would be my suggestion, and create a plan around your unknowns rather than the knowns. So we tend to start with the known things, but I would start with unknowns first if you really want to disrupt. Yeah.
Thanks, Rakesh. The next question is, just a second, Rakesh. Yeah, the next question is, how would organization measure innovation and get better at it?
So there are few indicators. There are so let me put it this way: there are indicators that tells that you are being innovative versus indicators that tell that you have innovation, right? So create the difference between the two first, right? Innovation is an outcome. So try to see if are you trying to first looking at as a company, are you being innovative? And so what all things that will allow to build organization habit is what we spoke about, right? Measure those, measure the quality of conversation, measure how people are generating ideas. These are absolutely great things to do, and no doubt, right? But that tells that organization is building an habit. What you have to really see is these ideas are getting matured through conversation with the customers, how many experimentations are happening, real experimentations are happening. Have we created some projects, real projects, and not hackathons, but real projects out of these hackathons in the organization? And measure those, how many such real projects that actually came out in the organization, which was bottom up, right, and not top down. So which, and I'm talking more about fostering this culture of innovation. So this is how you would measure outcome of these innovations. So uh, you will have organization outcomes, which is around the strategy, and the outcome of these things that you have created, new ideas that you have matured. So measure the outcomes in terms of, in my opinion, the best way to measure is when you have rolled it out. Two things: whether customers are using it, second, whether it is getting you money, and measure it along that. I think these two will give you enough sense of whatever pipeline you have created, whether it is resulting in an outcome.
Thanks, Rakesh, for the answer. The next question is by Lalit Prakash. What are the sources of funding other than venture capital that small organizations or startups can tap into?
I think there are quite a lot of sources, and honestly speaking, I'm not the expert, so I think I'll give this question a pass. But as an entrepreneur, yes, I know a lot of angel funding organization, VCs, and even debt-based. I have seen people in my life taking loans from the bank also and being successful. So I've seen different situations where people have done and how they have funded. It is the size of the fund which determines where to go and get the funding. So I'm not really the expert, but I'm giving you a very generic answer to this. Where to go.
All right, thanks, Rakesh. Meenal has a question for you. How AI and machine learning will change product management?
It's something which I definitely see will get more. I think we need to start more anticipating. So a lot of things what we do is we have something metaphor out there in the market to really look at. So a lot of things we try and kind of bring that. And when we look at ML and when we look at AI, I think we got to play a little bit. I think we have to be very good at analyzing data. And once we are good at that, and how and the behaviors that are there, so I think understanding deep behaviors, understanding how people, what are the triggers for those behaviors, are very critical, and which allows you to think how do you build the algorithms around it, uh, which builds that. So I think being able to suggest the right algorithms and see certain behaviors or which path you want to learn is very critical there. I think having that sense is very important.
Thanks, Rakesh.
Yeah.
Soumya has a compliment as well as a question. Quite an insightful session, Rakesh. It has been great to learn from your experience. Any example that you would be okay to share from your current organization, Tally, where in past you have been able to turn around a big customer issue with a demand-led or invention-led innovation?
Lot of them. The let's take the demand led first, right? So first of all, in Tally, we have, just to give a little thanks, Amir, for for the compliment, right? So um, in Tally, what we have is we have few projects which are really focusing on the demand that needs of the customer right now, which we are delivering as we speak. Uh, and some of the demand that we have delivered in the past, in the recent past, is this GST that it really GST transformation that was happening, and that entire I think close to 10 million businesses got impacted due to GST. So we knew that there was a huge demand from the businesses, small businesses, which will require a new tool which will be GST compliant. So those are the things that we have done, and we have done successfully. I think industry appreciates that, and the government. What are the inventions that we have done? We are doing. So some of the invention that we are doing is we are doing on a lot on the collaboration side. Um, and we are building the next generation tech which is designed for the connected world, which will allow business to business to talk to each other uh, in a very simple way. So these are the inventions that we are doing. We have done some inventions in the past, and that's where I think at the time when in 90s and 80s, some of the things that we did was never heard of. The way, if you run any tally report like balance sheet, it comes instantly. You click on it, in milliseconds, the balance sheet is up. And to that, this surprises the customers. And I have worked in other enterprise companies as also, so I know how much time it takes to create a balance sheet. But in Tally, it comes instantly. To me, that's huge innovation. Invention out there first, and then it became innovation because it had a market impact. And that's where it got really popular. Some of the principles around speed, flexibility, really allowed it to expand a lot.
Thanks, Rakesh, for this great answer. It is 5:13, so we have 2 more minutes left. So let's take up another
Okay,
question. Any techniques?
sure.
Yeah. Any techniques to help engineers have user empathy and insights if clients and users are not easily available for empathize and validation in a large enterprise?
I don't agree that clients are not interested in you sitting and watching. So try out. You will have some difficulties, but you will get there. And once you know how to get there, you will get there. Second, just take them along. Just take your engineers along with you. If you are a product manager, you are going and meeting. Just take them along. I've seen great conversation happening when we took our engineers to customers and have a conversation. I think a lot of good innovative ideas come. They understand the pain. They want to go again. So it really helps. Just take them along. Don't make it as a big story. Catch hold of them. Take them to few customers.
All right, Rakesh, let's have Gaurav's question as the last one. This question is in continuation with the question asked by Soumya. He says, Mr.
Yeah.
Rakesh mentioned about demand-led innovation and invention-led innovation. Invention-led innovation is a long-term approach. What is the timeline for the success of invention-led innovation? How do we measure that we are moving in the right direction for invention-led innovation?
Amazing question. Let's go back to the two solutions that we were talking about, augmented reality experience. Now, I'm not going to create a whole module first and voice based, I mean, and then start to experience what works, what doesn't work. Maybe I'm going to create a short interactive games with kid, a very short, something which actually kid can talk to and do something about it, right? A very small app on a device, and I don't think so that takes much time, right? And I would probably launch that. Maybe it is free. It's not getting you money, but actually it will let you understand how the child talks. Different child would talk. I would understand different behaviors there. and I would get that serious good data to be able to actually judge how I should be creating it. So I think those are the proof points that you want to look at. And once you have those proof points, is your ability to get yourself funded. If you don't have capital with you, is much easier and much better. So try to see how you can get those proof points, not necessarily um, get a commercial success. So can someone believe that in your deep talent out there? And if you can prove that, you have ability to get yourself funded.
Thanks, Rakesh. Thank you, Rakesh, for this wonderful presentation as well as for these interesting answers you gave. Being innovative
Thank,
doesn't mean innovation. Wow, that's my learning from today's session. Thank you for your time and efforts, Rakesh. And for
thank you,
everyone
Ankit.
out here, I will meet all of you on 24th of June with an interesting session on Agile Master Data Management at scale with AI from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. For more information and to register, please visit nasscom.in/events. Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just one last comment. In case we have not been able to answer, please drop in a mail. I would like to answer those questions if it is still not answered. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. As Rakesh said, you can reach out to him on his email, on his LinkedIn, as well as you can reach out to him over his email. You can write to me as well, and we will get back to you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Rakesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.